Hello and welcome to another edition of the Department of Basic Education TV News on OpenView Channel 122 and on YouTube. This is your weekly news roundup of what's been happening in the education sector. My name is Tsehohajo Moagi. Thank you for choosing the DBE channels. In the news this week, we get details from the Minister about the budget allocated to the department and to provinces. We go to Cornwall Hill College in Irene, where learners and parents held a peaceful protest outside and inside the school against alleged racism. Gauteng Education MEC Panyaza Lisufi has intervened in the matter. We hear what he has to say about it. The Northern Cape Education Department was forced to close almost 100 schools as COVID-19 infections increased. We find out what measures were put in place to ensure learning and teaching continued. Full attendance is expected for primary school learners from the 26th of July. The Department of Basic Education says this is to ensure learners are able to catch up on lost teaching and learning time. But is the department certain this is the best move? Remember, you can have your say by sharing your thoughts with us or any story you'd like us to cover on our Twitter page at DBE_SA, Facebook DBE SA, and Instagram DBE SA. You can use the hashtag DBE News. Let's start here. The Minister has addressed the National Council of Provinces, where she presented the budget vote as it relates to work done in the country. She said a total of adjusted budget allocated for the department and the provincial departments is 288 billion rand. This is a reduction of 2.4% from last year's budget. In other news, the Basic Education Department is in conversation with the Health Department to administer the COVID-19 vaccine to teachers as a matter of urgency. Although no official date has been set yet, the department is determined to vaccinate teachers, support staff and officials. The vaccination will start as soon as all vaccines arrive in the country. The two departments will provide clarity on the matter in due course. Meanwhile, KZN Education MEC Kwazim Shengu received his COVID-19 vaccine on Tuesday in Durban.
All the educators, because they constitute, in our view, also the frontline workers in this case. So it will not be those who are over 60. It's educators. So as long as you're an educator, I'm told to sit down. As long as you're an educator, once the program kickstarts, you will be eligible to be vaccinated.
To this now. An independent school in Centurion has apologized to both parents and learners for the slow pace of transformation at the school. This followed reports of racism and the lack of transformation at Cornwall Hill College in Irene. Learners and parents took a stand against the alleged racism at the school in the form of a peaceful protest. Learners carrying placards have called for an end to discrimination, inequality and racism. Parents have called for the inclusion of sports such as soccer at the school. Terence Kala has more on this story.
It was a somber yet powerful winter morning at Cornwall Hill College in Irene, as learners and parents stood firm against alleged racism, inequality and discrimination at the school. This grade 11 learner was very emotional while sharing her experiences at the school.
My first and most vivid memory of racism happened when I was only in grade 4. I was happily on my way to break when a teacher stopped me. She had this big frown that encompassed her whole face and swallowed me whole. And she looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Your hair is unpresentable, it is messy, and it's not the Cornwall way." She also proceeded to tell me that I'd look better if I chemically straightened my hair. After that encounter, I believed there was something wrong with my natural kinky hair. And for a long time, I was uncomfortable wearing my natural hair to school. Now, when I look back, I feel angry. I'm angry that anyone would dare tell a child in Africa that their African hair is unacceptable. And with that, I'm angry that I was stripped from my African identity. And that was one time, one moment, one person. And that stripping of my identity didn't end there. It continued when I was barred from speaking my home language with my classmates, while simultaneously having math lessons turn into Wiskunde. In these instances, it became clear that my home language and culture was second to that of Afrikaans. And just like that, nothing was sacred.
It was a well-attended event, which included parents, as well as Gauteng Education MEC Panyaza Lesufi, who had this message for parents, teachers, and learners at the school.
So to the leadership of the school, to the parents, and to all of you, my children, I can tell you now, and I'm declaring it, racism ends here and no further. I can commit on behalf of this school that no one will be mistreated from now on. I can commit on behalf of this school that we'll have teachers that will represent all of us in this school.
Parents expressed their unhappiness about the bad treatment their children have been experiencing at the school. They've had enough of their children feeling as though they don't belong at the school because of their hair texture or the color of their skin.
We call on the school leadership to take the following actions. 1. Put an end to all kinds of discrimination, addressing interpersonal and institutional racism, as well as the organizational culture which tolerates racism. 2. Set out and implement a transparent, inclusive, participative process for school transformation, which allows meaningful participation by all members of the school community, including learners themselves in the change process. 3. Make changes in the curriculum and how it's taught, so that learners are exposed to South Africa's diverse cultures and institutional rights and responsibilities. These include the addition of and increased support to African languages. Ensure that learner enrollment reflects the school community it serves. 5. Improve the effectiveness of the board by ensuring proper representativity. 6. Transform and diverse staff complement to include more persons of color in all areas and levels of authority. 7. Expand co-curriculum program to include and recognize a wider variety of cultural sporting activities such as soccer, dance, etc. to accommodate all learner interests. 8. Include diversity skills training on regular basis for grade levels as an ongoing part of the curriculum, mainstreamed into learner journey through the school. Our intention in this effort is to make Cornwall Hills College stronger and more supportive and inclusive community, and to boost its excellence through diversity.
The school's management apologized for the slow actioning of transformation at the school and even promised to make greater changes.
Although we immediately moved to establish the Diversity and Transformation Committee, a subcommittee of the board, we could have done better. In retrospect, we could and should have moved faster. This is in spite of the COVID-19 pandemic worldwide, which had an impact upon the education system. We mainly focused on that, but this cannot be used as an excuse for not addressing the transformation transgressions. On the wall to my left are the values of compassion, acceptance, perseverance, and responsibility. We are proud, and it is a privilege to be part of a school community that will be willing to act in accordance with that, with its ethos, in order to take a unified stand together to further promote equality and inclusivity. To quote our president, no action is small when it comes to changing the future. We look forward to taking the transformation journey with you, working together to enrich the Cornwall Hill College experience for everyone and to build an even brighter future for our children and the generations to follow.
Lesufi urged the school management to rather focus their energies on learning and teaching.
Stop this obsession with the hair of our children. We are all human beings, and and all of us deserve to be happy. We don't want when we enter the premises of this school that we should be reminded about our history or who we are. We want to enter this school and build a South Africa that all of us can be proud of.
Terence Kala, Centurion.
As you return to school in the COVID-19 environment, this is what you need to know. On your way to school, keep your mask on at all times. Avoid touching surfaces, but also try not to touch your face, nose and eyes. Remember to wash your hands with soap for at least 20 seconds regularly. It would be nice, but please don't hug your friends. Avoid sharing stationery and your books, but if you really have to, always talk to your teacher first about it. And oh, don't ever share your mask. Your mask is your safety. Your mask is your health. When you get home, take off your mask and wash it with warm water and soap. Stay safe and remember to keep washing your hands. Play safe, work safe. Let's beat the coronavirus together.
Thank you for staying with us. This is your weekly roundup of what's been taking place in the education sector. The Department of Basic Education says it is geared up and it is all systems go for the 26th of July 2021. This is when all primary school learners, including learners with special education needs, will be going back to attend school daily. The department has admitted that despite trimming the curriculum in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic, this has not assisted in covering the teaching and learning required for children in grades R to 7. Due to the global pandemic, schools had to adjust how they run classes and work on a rotational timetable. But this process has been difficult and regressive for primary school learners.
What teachers are reporting is that the rotational timetable is actually not helping in plugging the gaps that opened in 2020 in terms of us implementing our recovery curriculum. Because these young ones, after they have been at home for 2 or 3 days, when they come back, they have forgotten everything that they have been taught. So teachers are made to start over and over and over again, repeating the same concepts that they are teaching them. So in that sense, not making any progress in terms of our recovery plan. So we continue, instead, the rotational timetable that we are implementing, for instance, for young learners, especially in the primary school level, we are seeing more and more learning losses than we've seen even in 2020. So it's a continuation, therefore we are not making that difference.
According to research done by the department and advice from scientists, it is rare for learners in primary school to spread or even contract the coronavirus. But what plans does the department have in place to mitigate against an increase in COVID-19 cases at schools?
In terms of the directions, we are also suggesting that it should actually be the teachers that are doing the rotation, moving from one class to the other, as opposed to allowing learners to be the ones that are rotating, moving from one class to the other as they change, according to the timetable, going to take lessons from different subjects. So therefore, we are minimizing the movements and the interactions between the learners, because it's going to be difficult to exercise control in them. And therefore, if we make the teachers to be the one that move from class to class, I think it's our one way of making sure that we reduce the contact, the interaction, so that it's only limited to teachers as well.
The department is still looking at the possibility of returning other grades to a full-time daily school attendance. Now, after the break, we speak to Jeffrey van der Merwe from the Northern Cape Education Department about their management of COVID-19 cases.
I am a nurturer, like you.
Real men stand against gender-based violence.
I get hurt, like you.
If I am a victim of violence, I too will not be ashamed to report violence and abuse.
I hate it when someone violates me, like you.
In a violent situation, there is power in walking away. I will not take part in fights at school.
All I want is to feel safe, to feel loved, and to be free to show love. Like you.
I cry when I'm hurt, because to feel is to be human. I pledge to be more open about my emotions.
Make it part of the new normal for young boys to be nurtured and loved, to freely express themselves and to show love in a safe, inclusive way. We have different gender identities, but first, we are human. If you need assistance to help your child, contact Childline on 08000 55 555.
The Northern Cape Education Department says things are now running smoothly after having to close almost 100 schools last month due to the coronavirus. The schools had to be disinfected before learning and teaching could continue. I had a discussion with the spokesperson for the department, Jeffrey van der Merwe. I started by asking him if he believes the province was ready for the third wave.
Look, I believe the Department of Health in the Northern Cape, they have all systems and measures in place to curb the spread of the virus. However, our concern relates to what happens in our communities. As schools are a microcosm of society, what is due to happen in our communities will eventually happen in our schools. What is also of great concern to us in the Northern Cape is the fact of the high number of infections, particularly of our learners. Last week, we recorded 276 positive cases just for learners. The previous week was 176. So it shows that the infection rate amongst learners is quite high. And that is why we appealed to all school communities, in particular to parents, to limit the movement of their children, keep them at home, limit their contact with other learners and with their friends as well, so that learners are not perceived as the carriers of the virus.
Now, we do know that there's only so much that the department can actually do, but what measures did you put in place? You closed down the schools, but what more did you do to ensure that the learning and teaching actually continues during that time that schools were closed?
Look, first of all, I must indicate that we have a close working relationship with the Department of Health in the province. At provincial level, we meet bi-weekly. At district level, we meet on a weekly basis. This is to inform us as a department of where the hotspot areas are, what we should be on the lookout for, where there's a sharp increase in infections in particular communities. But I can also indicate you, and I want to cite this example, what occurred in one of our towns. It happened in Prieska, where there's 3 schools that's located in one community, but only one school where there was, or where we reported 18 COVID-19 cases. The other 2 schools, not so severe any cases, but due to the infection rate in our communities, the Department of Health advised us to close all 3 schools, disinfect them, and allow for learners as well as educators and support staff to isolate. So that's some of the relationships we have with the Department of Health, and obviously they guide and advise us of what to do to curb the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Would you say that you were prepared for what actually took place in the Northern Cape?
Look, as I've indicated, the Department of Health, they have all systems in place. They're busy with vaccinations and all of that, so that we can get to this herd community that the Minister of Health is speaking about. But what I can indicate to you, it all depends on the cooperation we get from school communities and the general public in terms of adhering to the COVID-19 protocols and guidelines. Obviously, us as a department, we were ready. We have our standard operating procedures in place at all schools. We've trained school management teams in that regard. Learners know what to expect. All learners and educators are subjected to compulsory screening every day. And then also some of the things that we have implemented is that during the intervals, learners don't rotate classes or move around from one classroom to another. It's the educators that do that to limit their movement, especially on the school premises. So everything was done from outside in that regards, and we're hoping that there will be a decrease in the infections in the coming weeks. We already saw some positive indicators in terms of the statistics yesterday. Us as a province used to vary in the vicinity of 400 cases per day. That number went down to 178 yesterday. So hopefully that's some good news for us, in particular in the education sector. Our district officers has also developed recovery plans for those schools that were directly affected. Learners would be required to remain at school for extended hours to ensure that their schoolwork are brought on par, as well as to ensure that their academic performance are not negatively affected.
And so what lessons then have you learned as a province and education department with something like this now?
Well, we need to adhere to the COVID-19 protocols and guidelines. All of us must act responsibly. We saw the havoc that this pandemic not only created in the country, but also worldwide. So it places a greater responsibility on all of us to adhere to the COVID-19 protocols by wearing our mask at all times, washing our hands or sanitizing our hands regularly, and maintain social distancing. And this is a responsibility that rests upon all of us. We're all in this together. So at the end of the day, we'll be able to win this battle against COVID-19 if all of us work together collectively.
Before we go, some great news for the Eastern Cape. The Department of Basic Education has announced Thandulwazi Primary School has won the first position in the Best School Awards in the National School Nutrition Program. And the winning district is Mogalakwena in Limpopo. The National School Nutrition Program Best School Awards were initiated in 2009 to recognize best practices in the implementation of the feeding program. So a huge congratulations to that particular district and to the Eastern Cape. That brings us then to the end of this week's weekly news roundup on Channel 122 on OpenView and on YouTube. Remember to get in touch with us via all our social media platforms using the hashtag DBE News. Until next time, it's goodbye from myself, Tsegohajo Moagi, and the DBE TV News team.